Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is Mooney and I want to thank you for joining me for my first live premiere. So this is going to be our big countdown for this month. Going to have some fun here. This is the top 12, because 10 just wasn't enough. Top 12 sequels better than the original movie. Hit the intro. Alright, so I know what you're thinking. It's going to be hard to come up with 5, let alone 10, let alone 12 sequels that are better than the originals. But I think I've done it. These are my opinions and my opinions only. Please feel free to disagree. Leave comments down below and tell me what you think. And all of that. So let's go ahead and get on to number 12.
Wop bobbaloo bop a wop bam.
Alright, so number 12 on our list is Hello Mary Lou Prom Night Part 2. So the first Prom Night is not a bad movie. It has Jamie Lee Curtis in it. The only thing with it is it's really slow. It's just really slow. And it doesn't have a whole lot of tension building in it. So when you get to the end, the payoff is just meh, just mediocre. So Prom Night Part 2, Hello Mary Lou, the only connection that it has to the first one is the fact that it takes place at the same high school. So we start off at the beginning of it where the school slut, excuse me, but she is, gets killed at the prom. It's an accidental death, but it's still, she's killed at the prom. She's really a heartless bitch. That was in 1957. We fast forward to 1985, I think it was. It's been a minute since I've seen it. And she comes back and she possesses the school goody-goody, Little Miss Virgin, and goes about seeking revenge on the people that wronged her when she was alive, as well as takes out all the competition to become prom queen. Really great movie, a lot of fun, a lot of humor, super 80s. The budget on it was mediocre at best, but it has some pretty good effects for what it was. It's a lot of fun. It's verging on comedy, not nearly as much as what Part 3 tried to do and failed miserably. Part 3 is atrocious. But Part 2 is a lot of fun. The acting in it is slasher movie quality acting. But yeah, so that's number 12 on our list. Let's move on to number 11.
Yep. There it is. Looks like you got some kind of alternate universe in there or something.
Thanks. Come on, Charlie. Guess I'm next.
Just learn these spiders in there, because you know I really...
Coming, Charlie?
Yeah, I don't know, you guys. Look, that's an alternate dimension in there or something, and,
Incredible.
Well, hold on a second, will you? I've been through this kind of thing before. Just don't touch anything till I get there. Looks like you're gonna need the help of a professional.
Alright, so number 11 on our list is House 2, The Second Story. Like Prom Night and Prom Night 2, House 1 and 2, I haven't seen any of the others. I know that there's a 3 and a 4, but I haven't seen those. But House 1 and House 2 don't have anything really to do with each other except they take place in a house. Could be anything, right? But so the first one was kind of a ghost story. This one is definitely more comedic. It's definitely lighter in tone. It's a lot of fun. If you do watch it, do not go into this as a serious movie. This whole movie is just fun. The local electrician also turns out to be a part-time adventurer. It has Bill Maher in it as a sleazy record exec. It's a lot of fun. This guy goes back to his house where he grew up and hadn't been in a long time. Finds out that his great-great-grandfather had this crystal skull, so they go out and to see if they can find it. Him and his best friend go out to see if they can find it. They end up digging up his grave, and he's still alive in there. So he comes back. He's a cowboy from the Old West, now in the 80s, and it turns out that the house was built with stones from an ancient temple, and the crystal skull that he has with the emerald eyes in it can open portals to different times and different dimensions. They end up coming back from the prehistoric days with a pterodactyl. They bring back this, they call it a catapuppy. It's got this little dog face on a caterpillar body. Barbarians from pretty much the Conan type scenario. It has to be another dimension because it's not historically. Comes back and tries to steal the skull. His great-grandfather's enemy comes back and tries to steal the skull. They end up going into another time or dimension or whatever, and rescuing an Inca princess or an Aztec princess. I can't remember, one of those. So yeah, it's a comedy. It's a lot of fun. It's goofy as shit. The first one is good. The first one has William Catt in it. If you're old enough to remember The Greatest American Hero, he was I don't remember his name. He was the teacher. He was the guy in the red suit. It has has Richard Mole, the guy who played Bull on Night Court in the original. This one, interestingly enough, the first one has in a small role George Wendt, who was on Cheers. This one has John Ratzenberger in it, who was also on Cheers. They played Cliff, I think. I don't know. It's been a long time since I've seen Cheers, but yeah, the two guys at the end of the bar are, one of them's in the first one, the big guy's in the first one, and the mailman is in the second one. So much fun. So yeah, that's number 11. Let's move on to number 10.
Come on, honey. Mommy has to get to work. If I'm late one more time, Mr. McDonald is going to can my ass. Will you get in the car? Okay, come on, let's go get in.
Mom, a clown.
Yeah, clown. Oh, hi.
Hi. I'm gonna have to be taking your car today. See, I have some top secret clown business that supersedes any plans that you might have for this here vehicle.
Alright, so moving into the top 10, our movie in the 10th place is Rob Zombie's Devil's Rejects. This is the second of what became a Firefly family trilogy. House of a Thousand Corpses is the first one in it, and it's a really weird movie, and not in the best of ways to me. Not a huge fan of it. It's definitely a rip-off of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. I think he meant it as a tribute to it, but it just plays out really too much like a rip-off for me. This one, on the other hand, William Forsythe as the sheriff is so well done, and he really is the catalyst that changes the Firefly family from being hardcore villains that they were in the first one to somewhat sympathetic characters in this one, which is a really interesting character arc that they go through. So This is a road picture. The first one was very confined. This one expands the mythology, shows them interacting with people outside of the home and then outside of the confines of where it was the first time. You've got an absolute ton of cameos from people who did movies in the 70s, 80s, and all of that. Ken Foray is in this one. Gotta love him. He was in a ton of movies. He was in Texas Chainsaw 3. He was in the original Dawn of the Dead. So, yeah, this one to me is just a whole lot of fun. I really enjoy this movie, and it's a really different side of the family and the family dynamic. Sid Haig, of course, as Captain Spaulding is wonderful. Sherry Moon Zombie as Baby is quite good. This is one of her better acting turns. A lot of people hate on her. I don't really. For me, she's just kind of flat as far as her acting ability goes. You know, to me, she's not horrible. I've seen a whole lot worse. But God, we've seen so many better. She's just kind of middle of the road at best. Bill Moseley in this one as Otis. Again, I'm not a huge fan of Moseley. I don't think he's all that great. But in this, he does good. I mean, I don't have a problem with him in this one. This is one of his better turns as an actor for me. So, yeah, that's my number 10. Let's move on to number 9. Alright, so for this one is number 9 on our list, and this is Annabelle Creation. Yes, I'm cheating just a little bit. It is a prequel to an already established movie. I don't rank Annabelle Creation above The Conjuring. However, it came out after Annabelle. It's part of the Annabelle subline of it, subgenre of it, or whatever you want to call it, spin-off of it. But I do consider it better than the original Annabelle, so I wanted it on this list. So, you know, of course we all know the story of the possessed doll, and this movie actually goes back and the 5-minute or so scene at the beginning of the first Conjuring, where they set up where Annabelle was created, and then they went back and expanded on it with the first Annabelle. This one actually goes back and shows you all of that creation. This movie is, of the ones I've seen, I haven't seen them all. I have not seen The Nun and The Curse of La Llorona. I haven't seen that one either. But of the ones that I have seen, I would say this one is the second to the original Conjuring as far as it goes. It really builds slowly. There's some jump scares at the beginning of it, but they're not overused. The tension builds nicely. The dynamic with the man and his wife who take in the orphans, the way that he runs the house, the way that he treats the house, the way that he treats the orphans, the nun, everything that goes along with it. You know, it builds up and builds up and builds up. You know, the well scene that everybody loves. The obligatory scene where the turns and I'll suck your soul. Yeah. But at the same time, it uses jump scares sparingly and it uses them very well. It builds good tension. The young actresses in it that play the orphans are very good, especially for young actresses, and that type of thing. So, for me, even though it's a prequel, I still put it in with my sequels list, and I still think that it's considerably better than the original Annabelle, and of the ones I've seen, second only to the original Conjuring. So that's pretty damn good for, you know, a movie this late in the series. So let's move on to the next one. So, number 8 on our list is Wrong Turn 2. This is one of those city folk versus the hill folk, where the hill folk are made out to be all these inbred, cannibalistic horrors because, you know, that's just the way that they think. The first one is really good. I really enjoyed the first one. It's a little contrived as to how they ended up out in the middle of absolute BFE to be attacked by this family. But the setup for this one is better, and that gets points from me. They're out there filming a Survivor type reality series, so for that you would go deep into the backcountry for. So there's a reason that they're there, a legitimate reason why they're there. It has Henry Rollins in it, and while I was never a huge fan of him as a musician, I think he's really good as an actor. I really like his presence on camera. I like the fact that he's playing ex-military, so he has all these skills. He's very difficult for them to take out. They really have to earn, spoiler, his death in it. The makeup effects are really good. They were good in the first one. Like I said, I really liked the first one. Eliza Dushku is wonderful in the first one. And in this one, you know, Henry Rollins and everybody else that's in it does a really good job. The tension is built well. There's some good gore. And that's a lot of what this series is about the gore, is about the makeup effects. They do close-ups on the inbred redneck family, and the makeups on them are really flawless. From what I read, they were based on real deformities, so they're not like really off-putting. They're really fairly natural looking as far as it goes. They did a really good job with this one, and it's also as much an adventure as it is a gore fest and horror movie. It's got some humor in it, which I really like. Most of the humor in it really lands well. It really is a solid comedic note mixed in with all the body horror and gore that's in it. Some really nice intense scenes in it, and as far as it goes, this is my favorite one from this franchise. So let's move on to the next one. Alright, so number 7 on our list is The Collection. The Collection is the sequel to The Collector. So the original Collector was, when it was conceived and the storyline first thought up, it was designed to be a prequel to the Saw movies. they ended up going a different way with it and created The Collector. And I really like The Collector, but I think for me the collection is more fun. It starts off in this club, and there's this huge thresher that just kind of comes, the human grater almost, comes down through and just mangles an entire dance club full of people. Then you have the girl who is the new target for him, gets kidnapped and taken away. The Arkin, the survivor from the first one, comes back to help the police, track him down and hunt down the Collector. They go into a hotel that's full of traps. It's some Rube Goldberg stuff at times. Some of it's laughable in the way that it carries, on with it, and some of the stuff, if somebody wasn't exactly in the right place, some of the things he does that sets off the traps, the fire trap, if he had really been wanting to kill them rather than torture them, or it's really just a contrived plot point so that the heroes can escape. But looking that aside, I think this one's more fun. I think this one's got more energy than the first one. I like the filters that they use for the cameras on it. The first one was just really blue, and really kind of in that one color palette the whole way through, versus this one you get bright colors in places, you get the blue again, you get reds, all of this stuff comes through. The cinematography in it, and the way it's filmed, it's definitely got a bigger budget. There's a lot more stuff. There's a modern take on an Iron Maiden in it, which, how fun is that for a trap movie? So it's definitely in that Saw vein, but I really enjoy it, and I personally enjoy this one more than the first one, and the ending on it, setting it up for, let's hope for a third one eventually, is really good. I like Arkham. I like the actor who played him, did well, and everything else. The Collector's mask is an awesomely creepy mask. It really is. It's somewhere in between. It reminds me a lot of the one from the Nightbreed. Went blank for a second. It's kind of like a black version of the one from the Nightbreed, mixed with a couple other things into it, and that and like a ski mask, which, it's a really dark, cool image that it gives him, and a silhouette that it gives him. The character of the Collector has obviously got military training of some kind. So it makes for a really interesting dynamic, and it makes for a really fun movie. Alright, so that was that one. Let's move on. Alright, so number 6 on our list is A Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3, The Dream Warriors. This is my favorite Nightmare on Elm Street, and again, if you watched my Franchise Wars ranking that just went up Monday, I talk a lot about this one. There are elements of it that don't hold up, but as old as this movie is, watching it today, it really does for the most part. It really strikes a good balance with the Freddy character between the horror and the one-liners. Freddy's genuinely creepy in it, but is also fun in it. The movie's enjoyable. Some of the most awesome kills that he's ever done. The punk rock chick, the kid in the wheelchair, the girl that he smashes into the TV set, the iconic line, probably the most quoted line of the series, welcome to primetime. All of that is in this one. Nancy comes back, her father comes back, so you have all of that. You have Nancy kind of goes through the same arc that she went through the first time, but quicker and more intense in a lot of ways. So you have that. You have this setting in there. Like I said in that one, the only thing that doesn't come off very well is the green screen, blue screen effect that they did where they put Freddy up in the sky marionetting the kid. That one, that effect is really not very good. The stop motion skeleton at the end of it, it's really not good now. It wasn't great when this came out, and I saw this when it came out. That said, most everything else in it is super good. The claymation bit where the faceless marionette turns into Freddy's face, it's stop motion, and you can tell that it's stop motion, but it's not bad. It's just a product of its time. I'm sure with things now in the CGI that they have, if they did it subtly, if they did it the right way and didn't abuse the CGI, that effect and the marionette effect and even the, like I said, the skeleton effect could probably be done better. But the storyline that they give you, the characters that they give you, setting up for future installments that they give you, Kincaid, Joey, Kristen, awesome characters that they created. The Nurse Ratched, the actress who played her did a very good job with it. She's very enjoyable for what she is. She's somewhat of a villain, but she's really not. She's just doesn't get what's going on, and she's an old school nurse in a psychiatric ward. So all in all, this is a really good movie. My favorite of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And yeah, let's move on.
Hey, I'll swallow your soul. I'll swallow your soul. I'll swallow your soul.
Swallow this.
Okay, so number 5 on my list is The Evil Dead 2: Dead by Dawn. This, for me, is the epitome of the Evil Dead franchise. This is my favorite in the Evil Dead franchise. This is where the character that Bruce Campbell plays, that was Ashley in the first movie, really becomes the Ash that we know and love. He really becomes that everyman bumbling hero that's a little bit crazy, but, still gets the job done in the end, even though he doesn't necessarily do it the right way. He still gets it done in the end. So, the first Evil Dead was made on a budget of about $3. This one comes back with a little bit more budget. It's a little bit better produced. The effects in it are a little bit better. But the way that things are done is actually a lot better for me. I really enjoy this one a lot more. It's boiled down to, for the most part, you have some others that come in. They do somewhat of a recap of the first one, very briefly because of rights issues between one production company and the other, and distribution and all that. But they really boil it down to just Ash versus the cabin, versus the evil spirits. Of course, everybody loves the madness scene where he's jumping up and down and everything's jumping up and down. Great scene there. The shotgun that he comes up with, the cutting his hand getting possessed and attacking him, and him cutting it off, and then replacing it with the old chainsaw. So good, so much fun. No tree rape like the first one, which didn't really freak me out, but I know a lot of people it freaked out. So there is some effects that don't hold up, but again, it wasn't exactly a big budget, even though it was, considerably more than what the first one had. The camera effect, the swinging camera through the woods at speed, all of that stuff is so much fun and had such an impact on the horror genre and movies in general at the time. Probably, I guess you would say it's a precursor to what became the shaky cams, all of that. He used a lot of the off-angle shots, things like that to put you in kind of a weird place, and then just everything that went on in that cabin was just surreal. And then, of course, that ending, you're hoping and, rooting for this guy and hoping for him to come out of this, and get away from all of this, and then that ending. And it's so epic, the ending of it, for me. But, yeah. Alright, so that was that one. So let's move on to number 4.
It's pretty lit up in there. Guess the power's not off in this area. A lot of Phillies still lit. Could be nuclear.
What are they doing? Why did they come here?
Some kind of instinct, memory, what they used to do. This was an important place in their lives.
Alright, so number 4 on our list is, or my list I should say, I'm sure it's not everyone else's, but number 4 for me is the original George A. Romero's Dawn of the Dead. This one is a lot of fun. It's a very enjoyable movie. On the surface, as well as when you dig down deep. Yeah, it's poking its finger hard into the chest of consumerism of the time. There's some jabs at the politics of the day. But when you boil it down to it, you've got a group of characters that you've learned to care about, that you've come to know, and then of course you have your zombies as your antagonist, and then they build a sanctuary inside the structure. They have everything that they could ever need, and just as soon as they're good and settled in, a bunch of raiders come in and attack them and destroy what they've built. Again, political commentary on consumerism, just day-to-day life in the 70s. All of that stuff aside, it's just a basic survival movie. When you look at it, as it is, the rest of the stuff is bonus material, added depth to it, but it's a survival movie, and it's a really good one. It's well done. Ken Foray is in this one. As I mentioned, he's been in several other movies, including a small cameo in Devil's Rejects. So, in this one he really shines. In many ways, he's kind of the character that I'm the most drawn to, as far as the way that things go. He becomes the group leader very quickly and very dynamically, and does a very good job of it. And then, of course, you have, there are downsides. Let's cover that before we get into one of the massive positives on it. The green zombies. Oof. It was the 70s. It needed to show up a certain way on screen. The grayish, greenish, it doesn't hold up. I'm sure that it was horrific and, made you think they were really dead back then, but it doesn't hold up now, especially with the HD and and Ultra HD and all of that. The better that stuff gets, the worse some of that makeup looks. On the flip side of that, what does still look good and what is still awesome is Tom Savini's blood, guts, and gore effects. Tom Savini is a master of those type of effects, and this movie is definitely a showcase for him. He does have a small cameo in it. He plays one of the bikers. So you get that. You take kind of what you take the pros and cons with it for a movie of this age, watching it today. But it does still hold up, and it's still a lot of fun. And for me personally, I enjoy it more than I do the first one. I love and respect the first one for what it is and for what it did. Especially again on one of those shoestring budgets, $3 kind of thing. And no professional actors in the first one, not really a whole lot in this one. What can I say? It's Dawn of the Dead, and it's a classic for a reason. So let's move on.
You're stating, counsel, you're not going to offer any contradictory psychiatric testimony?
Yes, Your Honor.
On the basis of the staff report, Norman Bates is judged, restored to sanity, and is ordered released forthwith.
What about his victims? Don't they have any say? Can you restore them?
Madam, please sit down. This matter is being represented by the district attorney.
Your Honor, my name is Mrs. Lila Loomis. I have a petition here signed by 743 people against Norman Bates' release, including the relatives of the 7 people he murdered. Doesn't that give me the right to speak out?
Has the district attorney advised Mrs. Loomis about her rights in this matter?
Yes, Your Honor. I explained that her petition had no effect on these proceedings.
Have you explained to her that this hearing is a matter of law and not a motion?
Don't you realize they're going to release a homicidal
Mrs. Loomis,
maniac?
I'm going to ask you to sit down, or I'll have the bailiff remove you from this courtroom. If you have any further questions, please discuss them with the district attorney after this hearing.
Why bother? It's all too obvious. Our courts protect the criminals, not their victims.
So my number 3 movie is Psycho 2. Yep, I know. There's going to be a lot of people that's going to hate this one. But like I was saying in the last one, I love the original. I respect it for what it is and for what it did. The original Psycho was in 1960, and it's very 1960s. I do, like I said, I do enjoy it. It was a lot of things that it did. In a lot of ways, it was the movie that set the stage for the slasher films, which are my personal favorite subgenre. It brought horror movies from the old world, Dracula and Frankenstein, and that type of gothic horror. It took that, stripped it down, and set it in suburban America, along the highways and byways. This was not something you had to go to Europe to get. This was the Psycho in your backyard. So the original was great in a lot of ways, but for me, Psycho 2 is better. A lot of returning cast members for it, which makes it really nice. The twist ending of it, where you find out. Okay, spoiler alert on this one. You find out that this time it's actually not Norman. That thing, they're trying to make it where it is, but it's not. Marion Crane's sister is back in this one. The first one had some really good elements to it, but some of the things that were bad about the first one were the dialogue. There were some camera shots in it that, you got to pay respect to Hitchcock, but the fall down the stairs didn't really work in the first one. So there's a lot of things in this one. This one's very grounded like the first one. It's very much a tribute to the first one. And for me, sitting down and watching them, while it may not be, as far as like looking at it from the perspective of the history of film, it may not be as great as the first one was, but for me it's more enjoyable than watching the first one. It's definitely a product of its era. If you're not into 80s, then 80s movies, you're probably not going to enjoy this one. There are places in it that feels like a made-for-TV movie, even though it wasn't. So it's not a perfect movie, but for me, it's my favorite of the Psycho movies. And it's number 3 on my list. So let's move on to number 2.
Get away from her, you bitch!
Alright, so number 2 on our list is Aliens. Now, this is one that, a lot of people are gonna agree with. A lot of people put this one higher than Alien. It is more of an adventure movie. It is more of almost an action movie or a war movie than a straight horror movie. But the Alien franchise for me still speaks of horror. And again, I do love the original Alien. But I like what it is. It's a very confined space, and all that. And this one's much more open. This one's much more fun. It's much more enjoyable. The first one's more of a true horror, yes, but still, I would consider I would consider the entire Alien franchise to be a horror franchise. This one, you get the sci-fi elements of it. You get the human elements of it. But most importantly, you get the great monster of it. And the Queen alien is definitely a good... Actually, no, I'm going to say that again. Is definitely a great monster. So, while this does have the other elements of it, it is, when you boil it down to its purest element, it is a monster movie. This is a movie that is... the great-grandchild of the Godzilla, of the King Kong, of all those type monster movies. This is a monster movie, and that's what horror, and that's one type of horror movie. And for me, sitting down to watch them, I can watch Alien, I can watch Aliens, and I can enjoy both of them. But if I'm just gonna watch one of those, or especially any of the ones that came after it, the first one that I'm going to reach for is Aliens. So that's number 2 on my list. And again, my favorite in the franchise. And I bet you're wondering how I can top that. Right? What can be better than Aliens? Let's move on to number 1.
Morning.
It rubs the lotion on its skin. It does this whenever it's told.
Mister, my family will pay cash. Whatever ransom you're asking for, they'll pay it.
It rubs the lotion on its skin or else it gets the hose again.
Yes, you will, precious. You will get the hose.
A census taker once tried to test me. I ate his liver with some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Alright, so number 1 on my list is Silence of the Lambs. Bet you forgot that was a sequel, didn't you? So Silence of the Lambs is the second movie in the Hannibal franchise. The first one being Manhunter. Manhunter is definitely an 80s movie, and it's really 80s. It's directed by Michael Mann. Excuse me. It very much looks like an episode of Miami Vice. It's definitely got that early MTV feel to it. But you have an FBI agent who has previously caught Hannibal Lecter, played in Manhunter by Brian Cox, and he's hoping that he can help him find a loose serial killer that they're calling the Tooth Fairy. So years after that, the Hannibal Lecter is called on again, this time instead of by an experienced profiler, a very young, very inexperienced, fresh out of the academy cadet who is going to interview him to see if he can help with another serial killer that's on the loose. And this movie really revolves around Hannibal Lecter and the character of Clarice, and the way that he, in a lot of ways, takes her under his wing, very demented and very psychotically. But he does take her under his wing and teach her things. He never gives her directly the information, but he does point her in the right direction, and in a lot of ways teach her how to solve these kind of things. You know, at the very beginning of this movie, she is just walking out of the academy. She is as green as grass. And by the end of this movie, she's still somewhat green, but she is definitely matured. She is definitely more of a solid agent. The end of this movie, you really get that insight into her, and she really comes through and really saves the day. The original Manhunter, the Dr. Hannibal Lecter originally played by Brian Cox in Manhunter, that's what I'm trying to say, is played, of course, in Silence of the Lambs and thereon by Anthony Hopkins. Brian Cox doesn't do a bad job by any means. He's quite good in the role, but Anthony Hopkins is just gleeful in his level of being sadistic. And it really comes through, and it really makes the character interesting. You know, you're looking at a true psychopath portrayed very much true to form in the way that Anthony Hopkins plays him. Such an awesome picture, and for me that's definitely number one on my list, and that is definitely a sequel that is better than the original. Okay, so that was my list. If yours is different, please let me know down in the comments. Give me however many you want, 5, 10, whatever. If you think of any that I missed that you think are better than the originals, let me know those as well. I really want to thank you guys for coming here to my first live premiere. It means so much to me, especially if you've stuck around this long. As always, I've got links down in the description. My Teespring link if you like what I do and want to help support the channel. That's there. Advocacy links are there. My fiance's Vinted link is there as always if you want to buy something from her. Anything you do like that will really help this channel out, and it is very much appreciated. Yeah, so as always, stick around to see what's coming up next on the channel, and y'all have a good one. Y'all be safe. We'll see you next time.